I almost pushed to quit. It hadn't started. Yeah, all right. So, I don't have an introduction to myself here, but I'm Curtis Coleman. So when I put this up on there, it'll just be at the normal site. But, last week we did part 1 on the secrets that are hidden in the Christmas story. And that part 1 was the story of the shepherds, the story of the angels. And how many of you had never heard that story before, the way that we went through it last week? With the Tower of the Shepherd. Good? Okay, good. So we have probably up to 70% in the class that had not heard that previously. Or if you had, you might have heard just little parts of it. But I recommend that you go back and watch it, because there's more in that story than just, the little bit of time that you focused on it, you didn't get all of it. Okay, there's a lot more there. And, it's fascinating when you realize that God planned it so perfectly that even down to the swaddling cloth was representing Jesus being our future high priest also, because he's wrapped in priest garment. So it's fascinating when you start to look at the details. Well, same thing is going to happen this morning as we look at the Magi and the wise men and their gifts. And, oftentimes when we want to find information, we can't get the information. Well, Rick Renner here wrote a book, published maybe 2 years ago or so, Christmas, The Rest of the Story. It's a beautiful tabletop book with lots of big, beautiful pictures, paintings. And he did research on obscure information in church history as well as in archaeology and in other ancient documents. And so he's put that all together into an easy-to-read book. And so I highly recommend it. If you don't have a Christmas gift for somebody, give them this book. This is a wonderful book. And in this book, a lot of the information I'm going to talk about the Magi came from his book, but then I did extra research to verify it, because I don't just use one author. But Rick Renner, by the way, is he's a Greek scholar, but he's also a pastor, and he has a ministry in Moscow, Russia.
Wow.
Okay? And it's a television ministry. And he preaches the gospel. And you can watch him on YouTube if you look him up. He broadcasts all of them on YouTube as well. And although he lives in Moscow, his ministry's out there. Headquarters for him is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay, so he came out of Tulsa, and he still has his ministry located there. So he's expat in Russia. And I thought that was just fascinating as I learned more about him. And a lot of my Greek training I learned from Rick here. And so in the Magi, we traditionally have 3 wise men that we hear about. All right? And the 3 wise men, it's interesting. You'll see that all 3 of them represent different types of nationalities, different, historically from Christian history, they came from different locations, from Persia, from India, and Ethiopia. And but we're going to find out that's just the tip of the iceberg. There was a lot more than 3. Okay, but these are the 3 that we normally hear the most about. And, we think that there was 3 because there's 3 gifts that are given. And that's the reason why, in the church, most of the time people say 3 wise men, which I love the song, we 3 kings. But that's not true. There was much more than 3, all right? But it's still a pretty cool tradition. And they came with the 3 gifts. They had the gold, frankincense, and myrrh. All right. So what's important about those 3 gifts that you can think of right now? What's gold stand for?
Wealth, economy.
Okay.
Government.
And in relationship to forecasting or foretelling the Messiah, what would gold stand for? That the Messiah is what?
King.
He's the king. Okay? So that's the first part there. Gold, usually if you hear a preacher preach on it, the gold gift was recognizing that Messiah is the king. And then the frankincense, what would that be all about? First of all, frankincense is very expensive, like the gold is. And it's a aromatic, very, very powerful smell to it.
I've been using it here lately for healing.
It's a healing, definitely. If you have the essential oil, it heals just about everything.
Yeah.
It's a antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. So it's a powerful healer. But also because it's the incense, the representation is of the divinity, divineness, the divine nature of Jesus. The Messiah will have a divine nature, is represented by the frankincense. And so what do you think the myrrh is all about?
Death.
Yeah, why?
Because it's deadly.
So they use myrrh
As an
for healing, but mostly for embalming, preserving, and it represents the death of the Messiah, and that he will pay the price for all of us. So that's what the kind of sermons you will get when you hear about the three kings and the gifts. I'm done with that part. Let's get into what Matthew says. All right, Matthew chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. What's the impression we get from that opening?
Foreboding information.
Foreboding.
Yeah.
Herod is upset.
Very upset. Yeah.
But also it's fascinating that all of Jerusalem was as well. You know, Jerusalem, when we say that, we're really talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the religious people in Jerusalem. Jerusalem's the primary point where all of the Judaic culture and religion culminated. Well, they should have known the Messiah was born. And yet, here they got people coming from the east, means they're not Jews, they're pagans. Yeah, the pagans are coming to worship the Messiah, the king. Where's he at? Oh. The uproar was not because there's three guys asking about it.
You're embarrassed.
It's an interesting situation. So it says here, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. The word behold, we don't really get the flavor of that in English. But in Greek, idu means shock, amazement. It was incredible that these people from the east came. And it was something that when you see the word behold in the Greek, it tells you to pause for a moment because there's a mental shock happening. Something significant is happening. And it's a wow moment. Well, if you just had three guys coming and looking for a king, where's the wow moment there? There's more going on. Okay? So I want you to really focus in on why are these little subtle things in the scriptures, like the word behold, when in English we don't even use that word anymore. Now, if you were telling a story and someone went, wow, that would be the behold, okay? A person in Old English would have said, behold! It's amazement. Well, and these are wise men. This is, magos is the root word that we get the word magician, magic. These are magicians. These are magic. And it's in the plural form. So we do know that there's wise men. There's at least two. It might be more. We'll find out in a little bit how many more.
Could this be a small part of it? Not exactly. Well, scripture say that if we don't worship him, the rocks will.
Oh, isn't that good? So yes, I would agree. If we don't worship him, the rest of creation does and will. And in this case here, the Jews who had the scriptures, the Torah, should have known about the Messiah's birth, and yet it took pagans coming from the east because they saw a star And so we'll talk a little bit more about that also in a moment. So I would say the interesting thing here is that the gospel, the good news of the Messiah, the promise that was given to Abraham was that this descendant would bless all of humanity. And now we see that. We see people who are Gentiles, pagans, coming from the east. And normally we would think of that word magician as the occult, as something that's evil. And we're seeing here, wait, there's something different about these guys. And they're coming to worship the king born of the Jews. So they knew a lot more about the birth of the Messiah than even those who studied it right there in Jerusalem. So this is very, very surprising. That's why Behold is going to get our attention. Well, we go into this, and let's talk about who these Magi are. So Herodotus, who is considered to be the father of history, he's not the first one to write history, but that's when you study history, he's the first one that people would point back to. Herodotus was a historian, and he wrote, the Magi are special caste of sacred leaders for the Medes, and they provided priests for Persia. So historically, we know that they're real. That's the whole point here. I'm going to start with history. We know that they're real, and they come from the Medes and the Persians. Okay? Second part is Daniel. Do you know that in Daniel chapter 2, it says he was appointed the chief of the Magi? See, he came with an answer that other Magi, the other magicians of the court, the other soothsayers and astrologers and other types of prophets, pagan prophets, couldn't figure out what the dream meant and even what the dream was. And Daniel, God gave him not only what the dream of the king was, but also what it meant. And the result of that was that he was exalted to being right there in royal presence all the time and appointed the chief of the Magi. Magi are not evil. Okay? They're not evil. They study things that others called evil, like the stars, predicting the future, looking at the stars. Well, you know, in the book of Genesis, it says that God placed the stars there for signs and seasons. And the word there for signs is pointing us to the Messiah. The stars are there for the Messiah to tell the story. Now, we could spend another 12 months just talking about the star gospel. The gospel in the stars. For example, just to kind of throw it out there and let you chew on this. The sign of Virgo, the Virgin, is in one position, and from the Virgin, you go all the way around and come back to Leo, the lion. The lion of the tribe of Judah, the lion will be born from a virgin, and you can begin to tell the story. And each name of every individual star in those constellations also tell more details about that story.
Not to mention our friend the Virgin always has a baby on her lap.
Yeah, she's always got that baby. All right, so 600 years before the birth of Jesus, we have Daniel now, who is a powerful, how can I put this?
Scholar.
He's a scholar of the scriptures, the Torah. And do you think that he would just not say anything to the Magi about all of this? No. So what we have here is that as the chief, he is teaching them about the coming Messiah. And we'll see more of that.
He's unlike any other.
No.
Nebuchadnezzar didn't tell his dream.
Yeah, he wasn't a
Yeah.
Magi himself.
Yeah, he got it all from God.
Yeah.
So the Magi also, over history, that's 600 years before. So there's a period of 600 years of history of the Magi doing something. Most people don't do the research to find out why they were so important. But we find out, though, that they were a very elite, powerful, and extremely wealthy group of high-ranking priests. They were out of the Persian Babylon area, but we have historical records showing us that almost every major emperor and king of the whole region had the Magi anoint them. Even Caesar. Okay, they came to Rome, and they came and did the anointing of the emperor.
Wow.
We have historical records that they were the king makers. If you didn't get the blessing from the Magi, there was a legitimacy issue there. Are you legitimately the king? And so that's, when they're coming to the King of Jews, it's a natural outcome of the kingmakers. We don't think of them that way. But historically, centuries and centuries of records, including in India, in Africa, in Europe, and even up in China. There are records of them coming and anointing the emperors and the kings. And they didn't just travel with just 3 guys. We'll see that in a little bit. So this is a powerful group, the kingmakers. Even to Rome. That's shocking. So, they also study the stars, as I said a moment ago. I jumped ahead, but the star gospel. Astrology over the centuries, there's, for almost everything that is a hidden secret, either we designate that as being evil and it's used for evil, or we sometimes designate it as good and used for good. And astrology is not horoscopes the way we think of today. Okay? Horoscopes, predicting individuals' futures based off the star positions, is not condoned in the Bible. Okay? But the study of the stars, like astronomers, and revealing the glory of God is condoned in the Bible. So I'm just helping you understand that when we say that they were astrologers, that's not the same connotation that we have for today with horoscopes. It meant that they studied the stars. And there was a special message in the stars, and they recognized what that was. And that was, there's a king that's being talked about. Well, as we go further now, we have them traveling afar. And they're coming from the east. Do you know there's something special when it said they came from the east? They didn't come from the south, the north, or the west. They came from the east.
Where the sun rises.
The sun rises in the east.
That's in one of my teachings from another source.
Yeah?
That's where knowledge is.
Knowledge comes
In
from the east.
And Magi wasn't because they did magic, it was because they knew the answers to questions
That's right.
that other people didn't have.
They had the answers. And from the east, the knowledge comes. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of information we can gather from this, but we don't have the time for that. But, but they came. And how many were there? Were there 3? Or maybe 12? All right. This book here, Revelation of the Magi, is a scholar's book. Early 7th century document lists 3 Magi. We know them as Casper or Gasper, it depends on how you pronounce the name, brought the gold. Melchior, I don't know how to say his name, brought the frankincense. And then the Balthasar brought the myrrh. That's from the 400 AD period of time forward, we get those stories. That's 400 years beyond the birth of Jesus. Okay, we just get these stories, and they're put into ancient papers, writings, and so we go back and we don't find anything prior to that 400 with these names in it. But these names are given to us about 400 AD and on. Well, this scholar here did some more study. The Revelation of the Magi is a 3rd century Syriac document recently translated into English. I have a copy. And it will list 12 Magi, and it was written as a first-person account, and that means it came from, up to 200 years prior to the 3 guys. We got an older document that has 12 in it.
Yeah.
So the question is, okay, well, how many were there? It really doesn't matter. So most of the time we say, nah, it don't matter. They came. But it mattered to Herod.
Yeah.
Because something special about them coming got his attention. It wasn't just, 3 or just 12. It was a group that came to him looking for King of the Jews that was just born. And so,
Well, he had his own Magi. He had his own guys there that I don't know, that he depended on, he paid off or whatever, so that he could be king. So he was a little worried about, am I really king?
So,
because they're going to bring me king.
Herod the Great became king because he was best friends with Mark Antony. And the emperor of Rome appointed Herod to be the king. He's not Jewish. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that. He's not an Israelite. He's not from Judea. He is from across the border. Today we call it Jordan. All right? And his whole family is from that area. And he started making all of his family members princes over different sectors of Israel. So he influenced the high priest by paying them off. And he says, just go along with the story and you can stay in power. If you fight the story, you'll be killed just like John the Baptist. Remember John got his head cut off?
Yeah.
It's actually from the son of Herod the king. But besides that, the point is, Herod the king was famous for killing everybody. All right? Well, okay, so we got these Magi coming in. They got this big, procession talking about the king that was born. If you had been waiting for over 600 years, as you're now a Magi, you're waiting for over 600 years to see the fulfillment of the prophecy that God will come in the flesh to save all of mankind, what would you do when that time came?
Show up.
When they showed up to Herod the Great, he didn't know. So what did he call for?
The priests.
He called for the priest to come in and say, where is he born? And did they know?
Yeah.
They know exactly where he was born. Because Micah chapter 5 tells us in Bethlehem. We studied that last week when we talked about the two Micah prophecies, about the tower of the flock and Bethlehem. So they knew that. So they had no trouble telling Herod, and Herod then told the Magi, go to Bethlehem, and after you worship him, come back and tell me so I can go worship him too. What a liar.
Well, and if Bethlehem was as small as it says,
6 miles away from where he's at.
why couldn't he have gone anywhere?
Because God's in charge.
Right.
That's why he can't go himself. God's not going to let him. So 6 miles away. So they go off. And it says that the star appeared again. All right? They were headed to Bethlehem. The star appears again. And it led them a different direction.
Yeah.
It did not lead them to Bethlehem. Oh, we're going to see that. It's like, what? Wait a minute. But the children's song says they were in Bethlehem.
For a while they were.
What did Herod say to them about when did you see the star?
He wanted to know how long they'd been seeing it.
How long?
Because he wanted to kill all those children that were...
Well,
that
he wanted to kill the child, but it had been 2 years since the star first showed up.
Yeah.
2 years. They had been traveling afar. 2 years later. And also the star had disappeared for a while. And they kept on going to the direction where they knew somewhere in Jerusalem. They knew that historically, the Magi.
And see, we always were taught that the star appeared for them again over Bethlehem.
Yeah, and it's not over Bethlehem. It just says it appears again. But we're going to find out in a little bit. It appears where he's at now, 2 years later. Okay? So, and we'll see as we get further into the story. I know, I'm giving you just little tidbits here and there. Just pulling you along,
We
yeah.
love it. We love it.
All right, so these guys are extremely wealthy. I told you, they were the kingmakers. Are they going to bring just a little tiny gifts?
And even if they gave gifts to the other kings, they would have had 600 years to specifically put the stuff aside for when they knew it was coming.
They're getting ready for this special day. For 600 years, they've been planning this. They were extremely wealthy. And they're known as the kingmakers.
They had to have a big entourage here.
That's it. Would you have brought just 3 little boxes?
No.
All right. So I'm trying to help you with your expectation. Okay? Because we don't get this from most people telling us a story. There's a lot more to it. It's a build-up. It's a wow moment. Right? So, this is what happened.
Yep.
Historically, we know that the Magi came in a caravan. All of the gifts was massive. It wasn't small. This goes contrary to most of our old traditions. But historically, we can look things up and we can find stories that are outside the Bible that talks more about it. So we don't know if they're accurate or not because we use the Bible as our foundation of truth. But we also know that historically, the Magi were a powerful group.
So where did they put all these gifts?
Yeah, what happened to it?
Yeah, what happened to it?
What happened to it? Yeah. So we're going to find out.
I mean, they were in a little, Mary and Joseph were in a little cave or a house by that time. Where would they have stored all this?
Yeah. So that's an excellent question as we continue going down the story here. Let's see if we can get any answers to it. What happened to all that money, that wealth? Okay.
Herod stole it.
So can you imagine Herod now has this caravan. By the way, there are 12 towers along this route. This is the ancient route for giving, what can I say? It's the royal route for goods from the east coming through and going all the way down to Egypt. And also it splits across and goes over to the coast for the Phoenicians' boat area. So this route that they're taking, this trade route, was world famous for hundreds of years.
And it's safe by now because of the Romans, right?
So, well, the Romans, they kept it safe, and they paved it. But also, there's 12 towers along the way that King Herod was in charge of. These towers were to help him know when people were coming into his area. So he knew for some time that they were headed there.
Probably also how many, because you can gauge how many people.
That's right.
When the towers keep seeing people.
So it's a powerful message that we don't normally hear. That Herod was not surprised, but he was upset, and he couldn't do anything about it because the group that came was so large.
Yeah.
Okay, he's not going to kill off these 3 kings. Instead he says, "Okay, there's a lot of people here. You guys go." And come back and tell me, and then I can worship him also. There's a lot of nuances here that is hard to pick up unless you look at all the extra Bible stories that are outside of the Bible. But the Bible tells us the foundations, that they came from the east, they had these gifts, and here's the same depiction by an artist showing the 3 kings in front with their caravan. If you wanted only 3 kings. Yeah.
Well, maybe they were the representatives of the others. And
Yeah.
they couldn't all fit into.
Can you imagine if you belong to a secret society and you're all going to go on a long trip? You're going to have all your guards with you to protect everything. You're going to have plenty of food for the travel, lots of goods, and the big gifts that you're bringing. You're not going to leave very many people behind. The Magi, I'm sorry, Ralph, you guys stay home and take care of, the house.
When the guy we've been waiting for 600 years has been born.
That's right. So the picture here is that this is a big deal even for the Magi. They're not just going to send a representative. Okay. All right. So as we get further into this, let's read some more. Let's get some more Bible verses here. They were saying this: "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Notice they didn't say, "For we see his star right now and we're following it." Because it's not taking us where we need to go now. So they're saying, where do we go now? Because the star's not there. Okay? And where is it born King of the Jews? Herod just must have freaked out. Yeah. I'm the one who's the king of the Jews. Yeah. No, you're not. You're a usurper. All right. So they were saying, where is he who has been born king of the Jews? The word for saying is a continuous, ongoing activity. Everywhere they went, they were saying, where is the one that was born king of the Jews? They're asking the Jews who should know. Everybody should know. So they're asking everybody. It's not a one-time thing to Herod. See, we don't get that story either. When the Magi came looking for the king, they encountered everybody and asked everybody. They were saying it over and over and over and over continuously.
So that's another reason why all of Jerusalem was stirred up.
They're all stirred up.
Because they were like, shh, don't, you're going to get Herod mad and he's going to go on a rampage.
Well, they could have done that, or they could have also said, where is the one that was born?
Yeah.
Okay? Because they're at a period of time where people are anticipating the birth of the Messiah. Everybody was anticipating it. John the Baptist was already been preaching about it. The kingdom has come. There's a lot going on. Well, John's not born yet, but he will be later. 30 years later, he'll be talking about the kingdom is here. All right, so saying was ongoing. And the word for king is Basileus. Basileus means the highest and the greatest king of all.
King of kings.
The king of kings. Where is he that was born? King of the Jews. The king of all kings of Jews. Okay? And we saw his star, became to worship him. And this is interesting. These are pagans. These are not Jews. They came to worship. And worship here is to fall down and kiss the ground in front of the one that you consider to be divine. So, it was the word that they used to describe this to Herod was, we came to fall down before the king and to submit to the king, our lives. These are pagans. They're going to submit themselves. This is representing us. We today are the pagans, unless you're Jewish, but we are the pagans who now have come to worship the king also. And they're representing us. They were the Gentiles. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Yeah. And after listening to the king, they went on their way. So he told them, go to Bethlehem. And behold, the star, it reappears. And behold, okay, here's the word behold. What do we get from that? Wow! Oh my gosh! There's the star again! But it's not over Bethlehem. It's somewhere else. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, and going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. He's not wrapped in the manger. He's in a house. Okay? Then, opening their treasures, they presented him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. All right, so what's interesting here, there is a phenomena known in astronomy when you look at stars, and we can go back in time, by the way, with software. I'm not teaching on Star of Bethlehem, but if I was, I would show you with the software, is that in Leo and in the Virgin, there is, those two are right side by side, there is a conjunction taking place of Venus in Virgo and Jupiter, the king of the planets, is in Leo, and it's next to Regulus. Regulus is the brightest star, and it's in Leo. So they saw this conjunction where it all came together, made a super bright star. If you were a person at nighttime watching this and you saw that, you would think, oh my gosh, there's something special going on here. Okay? So the specialness is that this conjunction occurred. Well, 2 years later, if you run the software, the conjunction reoccurs, but this time now it's in a different position. 2 years later. And I don't have the software right now to show you this, but it's now over the top of a different town. If you were doing the triangulation, Nazareth. All right? So they came to the house. 2 years later, it was a little boy now, a toddler. They came to the house. They didn't come to the tower of the flock. They didn't come to the cave. They didn't come to the manger. They came to a regular house. Jesus was 2 years old. That's the reason why. When did it happen? 2 years ago. Go kill all the children 2 years old and younger in Bethlehem. That was the decree that Herod sent out.
And he wasn't even there.
And that's why, and that's why he picked 2 years. People don't seem to get that when they read it. Wait, it's a house now. It's not back in there. And usually what you have is people say, oh, they were now in the inn. There's now room for them in the house. Well, anyways.
My only question is, with this massive entourage, why didn't he follow where the entourage went instead of going to the other town?
I think there's a lot that talks about God blinds people.
Yeah, apparently.
You know, mental fog.
Yeah.
And these guys are influential, so they really don't want no harm to come to them because it'll make them look awfully bad. You know.
All right. So the Bible does not tell us Nazareth. Bible tells us the house. Bible doesn't tell us where the star appeared, but the word for the star there is talking about it's a different direction now. We don't know the details, but we have extra writings of other historical documents that talk about it being. That's the reason why I put it up there as Nazareth. But it's not the Bible. So, don't think I'm telling you the Bible says Nazareth. It doesn't.
Well, I just had a thought, because the shepherds came that night when Jesus was born, and they went out and told everybody.
They told everybody. They went back to the temple and told.
Why would it be a surprise for the Jewish community?
There's so much mystery here. It's like, how could people be so blind, so stupid? When others who saw it are yelling about it.
Yeah. They just didn't believe it.
But it's the same thing today.
Yeah.
In today's society, you can have miracles take place and people deny that.
Yeah.
That.
So my girl walking through worst part of town.
Yeah.
Miracle right there.
She's protected by angels. All right. So we have them showing up. This one does show the little gifts. It doesn't show the caravan of gifts. There's another picture that Rick Renner has that shows the wealth being brought into the house. It's taking up all the space. It's just, it's just a painter's imagination.
A lot of that stuff is already gone because they had to live, they had to support the caravan and all
Well,
that, right?
Immediately after this happens, Joseph is warned, take the family to Egypt.
Get out of Dodge.
He needed the wealth to be able to travel. Okay? And he went to Egypt. They had to pay for something there on the way, and while they got there. And then it says they stayed there until Herod the Great he died. All right? So the gifts that were given to them were prophetic in nature, but also they were useful for them to use because they needed a way of traveling. We all hear the story that they were poor. They were not poor. We hear that all the time. Jesus and his family were not poor. They were carpenters. All right? And actually the word there for carpenter does not mean woodworkers. It means stonemasons. They were masons. Okay? And we also have records of the families in Nazareth who were stone workers built the beautiful on the seacoast is Caesarea, and it's a beautiful carved stone port for the Emperor Caesar. All right, and that it says that the families from Nazareth, historically we have records that those families, doesn't mean Jesus' family, but it says the families were stone workers and they built the port of Caesarea, and that's not cheap. Okay, but yet Nazareth was small, so to the Jews they thought, what good can come out of Nazareth? Also because Nazareth interacted with the Gentiles. Okay, and we don't normally think about that. They were right there close to Caesarea, and So there was an interaction there in Nazareth. And that's the reason why Jesus' headquarters is not in Nazareth. When he starts his ministry, do you guys know where he starts it at?
Galilee.
Capernaum, yeah. So it's on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. All right?
That was close.
Away from the side that was near the Gentiles. But later on, he does visit the Decapolis, the 10 Gentile cities. But anyways, that's a whole other story also. All right, so we're back in the house. There was wealth brought in. And these gifts, we'll give you a moment to look at the picture. Enjoy the painting.
Awesome.
They came to worship, to bow down, and to give gifts. Yeah, we don't know what happened to all those gifts. We do know that some of it had to be spent in order for them to go to Egypt and back. We do know also that later on, Mary will have a big family.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many brothers Jesus had?
Wasn't it 4?
And then how many sisters?
At least
They
1.
never said.
At least 2, because it's in the plural form.
Oh.
So that's a family of 7 so far.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, our thoughts about the Magi needs to be adjusted. Then, opening their treasures, they presented him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Okay, well, there's 3 there. So we think, okay, the word treasures is because there's 3. I want you to see something really special in the Greek, though. The opening here is to make way or to give entrance, a grand, magnificent procession of presenting these treasures. It wasn't just, here's a treasure. It was a big production. Then, the treasure is the word for a storehouse of treasure. It's not the word for a small amount. It's the word for a large amount. It's plural, and we normally think it's plural because of the 3, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But we're going to see something really special even about the word gold. It's in the plural form. Lots of gold was given.
Golds.
Golds, yeah. Bitcoin value, There was a lot here. So yeah, what happened to it? We don't know the details. We don't know how long the gifts lasted. We do know that when Jesus started his ministry, everything was always taken care of. And we always attribute that fact to that, okay, well, he's Jesus. He can make, lots of food for 5,000 people. And also, the women, I don't know if you know this or not, but he had a whole bunch of women following him all the time. They were groupies,
Yeah.
okay?
Benefactors.
The women were, most of them were either widow or they were wealthy. But either way, they provide the funds to him. But we don't get much about that. And we also know that he was always taken care of. And so when we say he represents the poor people, we do that on purpose because we think, well, that's a better story. But actually, his cousins own a fishing company. Who were his cousins?
John the Baptist.
Peter and
James and John.
James and John.
James and John, the sons of thunder. They had short temper. All right. They were fishermen. They were partners with Peter, but their family had a fishing company, and they were his cousins also. And so it's not like he didn't have people around that had money. And
But you said the Son of Man had no place to lay his head.
he did, because that was true. By the time he was at his full ministry, even his own family disowned him for a long time. His brothers, we don't know nothing about him. He's just gone insane.
Yeah.
And then when he rose from the dead, his brothers said, "Oh, matter of fact, 2 of his brothers became important leaders in the church, and Jude is one of his brothers,
James.
and James is the other brother.
Yeah.
And they wrote parts of our Bible. But in the beginning, they disowned him. He had no place to live and stay. But he did. But, it's interesting because we don't think of him as a child here receiving these kinds of treasures. All right. What became of the Magi? Tradition has it that when the Apostle Thomas was on his way to India to share the gospel, he stopped and presented the full story now of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus to the Magi group. So they finally got the full story. And Thomas is the one that gave it to them. Thomas, shortly after that, would be murdered in India. But he was able to deliver to the Magi the completion of their mission. And the story is that it wasn't hard for them to repent of their sins and to come to believe in Jesus. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm Irish, and the Celtic have their bards who tell stories, and they also have a special group of priests called Druids. And we know from them that they were waiting for the same story. The Druids were waiting for the gospel. And when who is the saint for the Irish?
Patrick?
Yeah. So when Patrick came to Ireland and started preaching the gospel, they were ready. By the thousands they were converted. Same thing happened up in India. By the thousands converted. And the priests up in India, they were concerned. And it was all because of Thomas. So they killed him with a spear. So he's martyred. They were fully ready for the gospel, and they believed what Thomas told them. And they got baptized, thousands of them. So these are all extra writings, extra stories, but they're pretty cool. So wise men still seek him. That's the message out of all of this.
You're just going to leave it at that.
Yep, I'm going to leave it at that. There's more to the story, but I would highly recommend that you read Rick Renner's book if you're interested in more. If you want more stories about the Tower of the Flock, there's a book out on that also that you can get from Amazon, Tower of the Flock. It tells you more about that story. And that's the end.